Welcome.
Welcome to the Everything Podcast. In this episode, I'm reviewing the Big Finish podcast episode released on the 21st of July 2024. But before we get to my review, we have the cast list, writer, synopsis and release date, as well as my thoughts of the episode. So it stars Nicholas Briggs and Benji Clifford, is written by Nicholas Briggs, and the synopsis is as follows. The chat will involve what's coming up in Big Finish in the next couple of weeks. The good review guy will be some of the good reviews of Doctor Who, Short Trips, The World Tree, the 15-minute drama tease and behind the scenes within this episode will be Doctor Who, The Lost Stories, Death World, and also available will be Doctor Who, The Lost Stories, Operation Werewolf. As I previously mentioned, this episode of the Big Finish podcast was released on the 21st of July 2024. My previous episode is I like all the coming up segment with all of the dates, which are slightly wrong, and I will explain, or some of them are slightly wrong, at least one of them are, two technically, and I will explain why throughout the review. I like that they're honest about taking a break, and it's planned. It's not like with my channel where sometimes I just go on impromptu breaks. I like that it's well known, so I'm not expecting an episode and there not being one. But yes, as well, yes, that's pretty much it. Without further ado, here's my review of the Big Finish podcast episode released on the 21st of July 2024. Benji introduces this episode of the Big Finish podcast, as well as himself and Nick. Nick and Benji run down this episode's schedule. Nick reveals that the Big Finish podcast will go on a break until returning on the 18th of August 2024, which is just under 2 weeks from when I'm recording this. Benji reveals that the Death and Life of the Song, Last Words, will release on the 6th of August 2024. And that's not happened, because I don't know, you might go, why do you know this? Because I'm recording this on the 6th of August 2024, and the Death and Life of River Song Last Words hasn't been released, and there's a few reasons for that. So first of all, just over a week ago, the old website crashed completely for like a day, and it got brought up, and then the next day, so this would have been the 30th of July 2024, the new app and website was coming out, which it did, apart from you couldn't really access very much. Yes, and I'll be speaking about several bits and pieces which I haven't spoken about now, because I'll speak about them later on in my review. So the other dates, we're not entirely sure if they're going to come out when they say they do. So yes, as I said, keep an eye on, especially on the podcast Twitter, especially which, yes, keep an eye there, because that's where all of that news will be. I'll be informing you of it there. And then Nick reveals that Torchwood Endgame will release on the 8th of August 2024. So the rest of the releases, I have absolutely no idea if they're going to be released in these days or not. Ben reveals that the War Doctor Rises and Mobius the Mighty will release on the 13th of August 2024. Nick reveals that Dark Gallifrey The War Master Part 2 will release on the 15th of August 2024. That's it for the coming up segments. So that is all of the Big Finish releases that are meant to be coming out between the 21st of July, well, for August 2024 up until the 18th of August 2024, when the Big Finish podcast will return. Benji and Nick read multiple reviews of Doctor Who Short Trips to World Tree. Nick reveals that the next episode of the Big Finish podcast, which I've mentioned, releasing on the 18th of August 2024, will include reviews for the audio novels The Dead Star. Benji reveals what is still to come on this episode of the Big Finish podcast. Behind the scenes from the Lost Stories, Death World, is included in this episode of the Big Finish podcast. Benji reveals that the Lost Stories Death World will release on the 29th of July 2024. Didn't happen because the website crashed. Next up is listeners' emails. Benji mentions how to email the podcast. The first email mentions Stingray's 60th anniversary. Nick explains what Stingray is. The next email references the 13th Doctor Adventures, as well as the Fugitive Doctor, Call Me Master, and the 13th Doctor Companions. So I should jump in here. The 13th Doctor Adventures were announced recently, where 1 hour release will drop every 2 months from July 2025. The Fugitive Doctor first box set will drop in January 2025, and the first box set of Call Me Master will release in February 2025. The final email mentions Dalek Empire, which was a very, very old Big Finish series. I've not listened to that one. Nick does a Sandman impression. Nick mentions Gallifrey, which is also a Big Finish series. Benji mentions washing powder. Nick reveals the composer for the 13th Doctor Adventures. Benji and Nick name drop multiple washing powders. Nick mentions the weather. Nick reveals that the Lost Stories Operation Werewolf will release on the 30th of July 2024. This was incorrect because the Lost Stories Operation Werewolf was released on the date that was originally meant to be released, which was the 24th of July 2024. So I wrote half of the review, and then what happened? The website crashed, and then the new app and website, you can't. Apparently, I don't have Operation Werewolf, so I can't continue writing. So that review is about halfway done, and I'm waiting to be able to finish that review because I really enjoyed the first half, but I haven't managed to the second half. So it might just mean that Operation Werewolf might be a bit later, so the dates might not line up, but we'll see, because I'm still catching up from the time that my laptop had to be repaired because it just decided to stop working. So yes, I'm alright at the moment, but we'll see about that. This week's Random and Selectron, which is a 25% discount, and that 25% discounted release is Subterranea, which features the 4th Doctor, played by Tom Baker, and Romana, played by Lala Ward. The trailer for Subterranea is included in this episode of the Big Finish podcast, as is some behind the scenes from Operation Werewolf. Benji reveals how to get the 25% discount on Subterranea. Nick mentions one of Big Finish's sound engineers. Nick reveals that the next episode of the Big Finish podcast, which I've mentioned several times at this point, releasing on the 18th of August 2024, should include a discussion on Susan's War family ties, which should release the week after. And this episode of the Big Finish podcast concludes with the first 15 minutes of the Lost Stories Death World, which will release at some point. But yes, that is my review of the 21st of July 2024 episode of the Big Finish podcast. Next time on the Everything podcast, I will be reviewing the Neighbours episode released on the 22nd of July 2024. Here's the trailer.
Coming up on Neighbours.
Dad just flew in.
Vic.
My ex-husband is in town. So why is he here? What does he want?
Can't skip all the big stuff and then roll in here and act like a father.
You must be Haz's sister. Thanks for holding the fort, but I'll take it from here. Oh, I'm so sorry.
You and Amira. I don't get what's wrong. What did I do?
You're not my boyfriend anymore.
Fine by me. Come here, fella.
This is Logan. Logan, this is Aaron. Aaron was married to David.
Melanie has told me all about him. I can't even imagine what you've been through after you lost your partner.
You want to make sure you make a good first impression.
Aren't you going to get in trouble for ditching school?
Your son is the bad influence here.
Your coffee's on fire. I had to think the residents of Irene Rising will be the very first to try it tomorrow.
There's been another poisoning.
Welcome to the official opening of Irene Rising.
Chin chin. What does that taste?
Help! Help!
That was the most recent trailer that's been released for Neighbours, which is what I do. I use the most recent trailer that I can find for everything that I speak about on the channel. But yes, that's what I'm covering in the next episode. Back to this episode, let me know what you thought about the 21st of July 2024 episode of the Big Finish podcast. If you watched it, my review, if you didn't, I'm sorry that it may have come across that I was bashing Big Finish. I wasn't. I was just wanting to explain that if you were looking for those releases, why you couldn't find them at the moment. By the time this releases, everything might be sorted, they might all be out, but as of recording this on the 6th of August 2024, as I mentioned, Last Words isn't out. I can't actually access Operation Werewolf at the moment, so I can't continue my review for that, but by the time all the episodes come out, there might not be a problem at all, so we never know. But yes, back to this episode, and yes, Big Finish Podcast. So put your thoughts on both those in the comments below, as well as anything else you want to cover the channel. So a review session for a TV show or movie. Some of the ones that I've had so far include The Boys Season 4, House of the Dragon, Big Mouth, Fallout, Two Broke Girls, TV side, movie side. I'm halfway through Argyle, but that's slightly different. It's not like Operation Werewolf, it's just that I like to do the new stuff and I do the review sessions when I can. What else have we got? We've got The Fall Guy, which I think's on some streaming service now. Movie wise, why can't I think of them? Hitman as well. Yeah, and Back to the Future Part 2, just to name a few. You can also send in some book or comic reviews. I'll be reviewing the Avengers Forever comic series because that is another review session that I have had. Or some news about your favourite TV show or movie. As I've previously mentioned, I'll be going through all the news of San Diego Comic Con and D23 2024, and D23 is only in a matter of days, and San Diego Comic Con was about a week and a half. That's based on when I'm recording. When this episode will be released, D23 will have long gone. But yes, and San Diego Comic Con will obviously be 2 weeks but in front of that, so yeah, a while. But yes, I will do those as soon as I catch up, as I mentioned, because of my laptop being repairing and not being able to access Operation Werewolf at the moment, but hopefully it's all sorted. But yes, there's not much I can do if I can't access the content. I can't really review it at the moment, so that one might be pushed back. But yes, that is it for this episode. So put your comments on all of those in the comments below. And you can also like, comment and subscribe. And that's it for this episode of the Everything Podcast. Goodbye.